Good morning, students. So, till now, we read that after the company became Diwan, they explored new ideas and new thoughts of getting more and more revenues for their company. And for that, they introduced some more policies to improve the agriculture also. Like we read about Mehelwadi system, we read about permanent settlement, the Monroe system or the Ryotwari system. So all these systems were successful or not? No, they were not successful, and the idea which they thought of coming out of by implementing all these policies, so it exactly did not come as it was expected. So all was not well. So what they thought, so now they thought for cultivating the crops which were needed for Europe. Okay, so they forced the cultivators, they forced the farmers to grow the crops that Europe required. And by the late 18th century, the company was trying its best to expand the cultivation of the crops. So they persuaded or forced the cultivators in various parts of India to produce other crops. Like they forced them to grow jute in Bengal, tea in Assam, sugarcane in UP, and wheat in Punjab. So, like this, they forced the cultivators to grow these crops in various parts of the country. So, in additional to this, there was one more crop which was so much in demand. So, which was that crop? And during that time, India was the biggest supplier of that crop in the world at that time. And they wanted the Indians to grow that crop for them. So, which was that crop? And that was indigo. So, the name of the plant which was in demand was indigo. So indigo is what we call neil, okay, blue colored solution which we put in the clothes to dye the clothes into blue color. So it was in high demand for dyeing clothes in Europe, and India's tropical climate is suitable for its growth because it needs warm temperature. So India's climate was suitable for its growth, and India was the main exporter of indigo. So, however, only small amounts of indigo reached the European countries, and its price was very high that time. So therefore they had to depend, the European cloth manufacturers, they had to depend on another plant called woad. So you will read in the book woad. So to make violet and blue dyes. Being a plant of the temperate zones, woad was more easily available in Europe. It was grown in northern Italy, southern France, and in parts of Germany and Britain. So what happened? So they wanted indigo also, the Britishers wanted indigo also, and when this indigo started going to the European countries, so already there was one blue dye which was called woad, and this was in use. So when indigo came to the European countries, so the woad planters and the woad cultivators, they were woad producers, they were in tension, and they pressurized the government also to ban the import of indigo because they were going in loss that time. The woad producers which were already in Europe, they were against the indigo import, because as compare, if you compare the quality of indigo and woad, the cloth dyers, they preferred indigo as a dye because indigo produced a rich blue color, whereas the dye from woad was pale and dull. So that's why they used to prefer indigo, but the woad producers were in loss, so they pressurized the government also to ban the import of indigo. But however, European cloth producers, they they were successful to convince the government to relax the ban on indigo import. So indigo was the main crop, was an important crop which was exported to Europe, and the French began cultivating indigo in Saint Dominic in the Caribbean islands. So these French people, they were also cultivating this indigo in Saint Dominic in the Caribbean islands. They were having African slaves there. So African slaves were working for the French people, and they were producing indigo and sugar in the French colony of Saint Domingue in the Caribbean islands. And the African slaves who worked on the plantations rose in rebellion. They stood up against them, and this rose a rebellion against the French people in 1791. They burned the plantations, they killed their rich planters, and in 1792 France abolished the slavery in the French colonies. So these events led to the collapse of the indigo plantations on the Caribbean islands. So why these Britishers, they turned towards India for this indigo plantations? This is also a reason that there was a decline in the French company also. The production of indigo declined in the French company also, and they say that as the demand for indigo was increasing, the existing supplies from the West Indies and the America also collapsed for a variety of reasons. So that's why, and by between 1783 and 89, the production of indigo in the world fell by half. So now the cloth dyers in Britain, they were now desperately looking for new sources of indigo supply. So that's why this was the reason they turned to India for the cultivation of indigo, and they forced the farmers, the cultivators, to grow indigo in their crops. So that's why Britain turns to India. So this is the plant which you can see. This is called indigo plant, and this picture of jeans is colored from this indigo blue color. Okay, so if you talk about the indigo cultivation, so it was growing rapidly, and Bengal indigo came to dominate the world market. In 1788, only about 30% of the indigo imported into Britain was from India. So if you see first in 1788, okay, listen carefully, in 1788 first only 30% of the indigo was going from India, and by 1810, after few years, so by 1810 the proportion had gone up to 95%, means 95% of the indigo was going from India to the Britain, and this indigo trade was growing. So commercial agents and officials, they began investing in indigo production, and so many company officials, they left their jobs also to look after their indigo business. So this growth of indigo cultivation in India attracted so much of profit. So number of English people, they came to India and they became planters. Those who had no money to produce indigo, they could get loans from the company and the banks. So they were coming up at the time. Okay, so this indigo business, indigo cultivation was growing at a very fast rate that time, and the company were getting so much of profit out of that. So that's why they decided to flourish this business, and they started to invest more in this indigo crop. So there were two methods, there were two main systems of indigo cultivation. So now, as I told you that by 1810, 95% of the indigo was going from India, from Bengal to the Britain, and this attracted so many Englishmen to come to India and invest in indigo plantation. So this indigo plantation was becoming so popular that people were coming and investing there. Some that were leaving their jobs also, and they were coming to look after their indigo plantation. So there were two main systems of this indigo cultivation. First was niche system. You can see first was Nij system and second was Rayoti system. So what was under this Nij system? It says that under this system the planter produced on land which was under his control by way of ownership or rent basis, and large fertile area was required for indigo cultivation. So what is happening in this system is, first of all you should understand who is a planter here. Okay, so who is a planter? Planter here doesn't mean the person who is planting the indigo. Okay, here planter means the person who is investing money in the cultivation of indigo. Okay, he is getting it done, the main person who is investing in the indigo plantation, not the person who is planting it. Okay, not the farmer. So planter was the main person who was investing the money in indigo cultivation. So the planter produced on land which was under his control. Maybe sometimes he buys the land or he hires the land on rent basis. So it can be he can buy the land or he can take the land on rent. So large fertile area was required for indigo cultivation. Fertile area, it's very important that this indigo plant requires fertile area only. Okay, so this was the one system, that under the Nij system the planter first buy the land or rent the land and then he produced the indigo over that. So he tells the person whom he hires to do the cultivation of indigo for him. And the other system was Rayoti system. So under this system planters entered into contract. So you must understand here what do you mean by contract. So here contract means a written agreement with set of conditions or rules. Okay, so under this system planters entered into contract with ryots or village headmen. Okay, so now here planters, they are not investing directly in the indigo cultivation, they are signing the contract with ryots. Ryots are the cultivators or village headmen and provide them with loan. So they were helping them, they were signing the ryots or village headmen and providing them loan to grow indigo with a condition. Now what was the condition? With a condition to keep 25% land exclusively for indigo cultivation. So this was the condition. So Rayoti system says that under this system planters entered, they signed a contract with ryots or village headmen and then they provide them with loan to grow indigo. And what was the condition? That they will keep 25% land exclusively for indigo cultivation. But though the system were fine, but there were some problems which were faced by the Rayotis. So what were the problems? Let's see. So different problems were faced by the Nij cultivators in the Nij cultivation also and in the Rayoti cultivation also. So the problems which were faced with Nij cultivation was, the planters, they asked them to expand the area under Nij cultivation. So indigo, because indigo could only be cultivated on the fertile lands and these were already densely populated, so only small plots were available. So planters, they needed large areas in compact blocks to cultivate indigo in plantations. Now from where could they get such land from? So what they did, they attempted to lease in the land around the indigo. They started to take away the land around the indigo factory and evict the peasants from the area. So but this always led to conflicts and tensions. So this was the problem with Nij cultivation. And now was labor was also required at that time when they were usually busy with their rice cultivation. So then also there was a conflict, and moreover Nij cultivation, they required many plows and bullocks. So 1 biga of indigo cultivation required 2 plows. So this meant that a planter with 1000 bigas would need 2000 plows. So investing on and purchasing such number of plows was a big problem, and the supplies were also not fulfilled because that was the same time which was clashing with the rice cultivation also. So it was and planters, they were reluctant to expand the area under niche cultivation, so less than 25% of the land producing indigo was under this system. And the same was the problem with the Rayoti system also, that the income from indigo was less. Though they were getting the loans, they were forced to sign the contract. So the planters forced the ryots to sign a contract or an agreement, and they pressurized the village headmen to sign the contract sometimes on the behalf of ryots. And those who signed the contract, they got cash advances from the planters at low rates of interest to produce indigo. And the loan which they got to cultivate indigo on at least 25% of the area under his holding. So the planter provided the seed, the planter was providing them seed also and the drill also. And the cultivators, they used to prepare the soil, sow the seeds and look after the crops. But so when the crop was delivered to the planter after the harvest, a new loan was given to the Ryot again, and the cycle started all over again. So this was like a cycle. They were taking loan, the planters were giving loan to the Ryots, okay, they were providing seed also, and they were first only in the beginning they were giving very low amount to them as their interest, and then peasants who were initially tempted by the loans soon realized that how harsh the system was. So this system was very harsh, very cruel system was there. First the peasants, they did not realize that this system is a loss for them, but afterwards they realized that the system of loan was really harsh to them, and the price they got for the indigo they produced was very low. The income to them was very low, they were not getting anything out of that, and the cycle of loans were going on and on, they were never ending. So there were other problems too, like the planters usually insisted that indigo should be cultivated on the best soils in which peasants preferred to cultivate rice. So it required best soils, and the peasants, they used to cultivate rice on that, and the planters wanted then that the peasants should grow indigo on that soil. So indigo, and there was a problem with the indigo plant that their roots go deep into the soil, and when it is going deep into the soil, it was exhausting the soil rapidly. So after an indigo harvest, the land could not be sown with rice. It was not fit to produce, to cultivate rice. So these were all the problems which were faced by the indigo cultivators in both the systems. Both the systems were facing problems, niche cultivation also and Rayoti cultivation also. So now when the people realized that they were in loss, they started a rebellion against them. So that rebellion was known as the Blue Rebellion. So why it was called the Blue Rebellion? Because it indicated the color of the indigo, that is the blue color. So in March 1859, a rebellion broke in Bengal. The rebels were the indigo cultivators. So why they decided to rebel? Because there was no income they were getting out of indigo plantation, and the land was also becoming infertile, and the cycle of loans were never ending. So they were not getting any profit out of this indigo cultivation. So that's why they started to rebel against the British again. So as the rebellion spreads, they refused to pay, ryots refused to pay the rents to the planters, and they attacked the indigo factories armed with swords and spears, bows and arrows, and women turned up to fight with pots, pans and kitchen, whatever they had in their kitchen, they came up with that. And those who worked for the planters were socially boycotted. And the Gomasts, who were Gomasts? They were the agents of the planters who used to go to the villages to collect the rent, and they were beaten up by the ryots. It was a rebellion. So ryots swore that they would no longer take advances to sow indigo nor be bullied by the planters. Okay, so rebellion, the Blue Rebellion in 1859, the Indigo Riots felt that they had the support of local zamindars and village headmen in their rebellion against the planters. So the Riotis, they were getting the full support from the local zamindars and the village headmen also. So sometime in many villages, headmen who had been forced to sign indigo contracts mobilized the indigo peasants and fought pitched battles with Lathials. In other places, even the zamindars went around villages urging the riots to resist the planters. So these zamindars were unhappy with the increasing power of the planters and angry at being forced by the planters to give them land on long leases. Means even the zamindars and the village headmen, they were not happy with the planters. They were, because they were forced for doing everything. So that's why they were also with the Riotis. So they joined up together and make up a strong rebellion. So the indigo peasants also imagined that the British government would support them in their struggle against the planters. So what happened after the revolt of 1857? The British government was particularly worried about the possibility of another popular rebellion. So this was after the first revolt which took place due to doctrine of lapse in 1857. So this, now they were particularly worried about the possibility of another popular rebellion. This is the Blue Rebellion. So when the news spread of a simmering revolt in the indigo districts, so what happened? So this news was spreading all over that the people were rebelling. So the lieutenant governor toured the region in the winter of 1859. The Riots saw the tour as a sign of government sympathy for their plight. So when this lieutenant governor came to the region to take the tour, so then the Riotis felt that maybe it is a sign of the government sympathy for their poor condition. So when in Barasat, okay, so when in Barasat, the magistrate Ashley Eden issued a notice stating that riots would not be compelled to accept indigo contracts. Word went around that Queen Victoria had declared that indigo need not be sown. So when Queen Victoria came to know about all these things which were happening in India at that time, so she ordered the magistrate of Barasat, which is in West Bengal, to issue an order which states that riots would not be forced to enter into indigo contracts. So they would not be forced into, nobody would force them to grow the indigo plants. Okay, so it was Eden was trying to placate the peasants. Eden was this statement was declared just to control the explosive situation, but his action was read as support for the rebellion. So but the people misunderstood this, that they thought that they have got the orders that in the future they would never be required to grow indigo, but that was not the situation. It was only to control the present situation. They just gave the stay order for the present time only, that at this time nobody would force them. It was not, nothing about the future was written in that agreement, but the Riotis, they misunderstood that statement also. So as the rebellion spread, intellectuals from Calcutta rushed to the indigo districts. They wrote of the misery of the riots, the tyranny of the planters, and the horrors of the indigo system. So now for all this, they set up one commission. So the Queen Victoria ordered to set up one commission to look into this matter, to look into the Blue Rebellion which was taking place that time, and they concluded the following. So they sat up, they sat and they took out some decisions, they took out some conclusions for the people. And what were the conclusions which were taken out? So first was that the planters were found guilty. Obviously they were guilty because they were forcing the riots to plant the indigos, to grow indigo. So first, that they were found guilty, and they criticized them for the coercive methods they used with indigo cultivators. The planters, they were forcing riots to enter into the contracts. So this was also wrong. So they were found guilty. Moreover, it declared that indigo production was not profitable for riots. Obviously, it was not profitable, as I told you that there was no income out of that, and the land was becoming infertile. The cycle of loans were never ending. So the commission asked the riots to fulfill their existing contracts, but also told them that they could refuse to produce indigo in future. So this was the condition, this was the settlement, that riots were asked to fulfill the existing contracts. Means now what they were told, they should agree on that, but they got the right to refuse indigo cultivation in the future. So after the revolt, the production of indigo came to an end in Bengal and shifted to Bihar. So the indigo production collapsed in Bengal, and the planters now shifted their operation to Bihar. So it was not like that this blue rebellion took place and because of that the planters shifted to Bihar. There was one more reason of this, that there was an introduction of synthetic dyes. People had started using synthetic dyes also in place of indigo. That also shifted their operations to Bihar. So then they went to Bihar, and again the same thing, they went there, they introduced the system, and then again the problems rose there, and this same thing happened, that the people of Bihar also, they are also riotis, they started rebelling against the British company. So and that time Mahatma Gandhi also returned from South Africa. So a peasant from Bihar persuaded him to visit Champaran and see the plight of the indigo cultivators there. Okay, from that, this Champaran movement, which was famous, that took place. Okay, that was the beginning. So same thing, Bihar, the riotis of Bihar were facing, and that time Mahatma Gandhi returned from South Africa. So one peasant from Bihar, he convinced him to visit Champaran and see the poor condition of the indigo cultivators there. So at this, Mahatma Gandhi's visit in 1917 marked the beginning of the Champaran movement against the indigo planters. So this was the beginning of the Champaran movement against the indigo planters. So this is how you came to know that what all we read in this chapter. We read about the revenues, the permanent settlement, Mehelwadi system, Rothwadi system, and we read about the crops, we read about the indigo crop, okay, the problems which were faced, and we read about the blue rebellion. Okay, so this was about your chapter. So now understood. I suggest you that again go for self reading once again from the PDF file, or if you have books, go for the self reading and try to understand the concepts and then do the assignment part. Okay, thank you.